Right, for the next step in my incredible journey with this Royal Enfield 250 Olympic, I'm going to be removing the valve guides because there's a lot of wear between the valves and the guides. There's wear on the valve stems and there's wear in the guides. I don't know how well the camera will pick that movement up, but the exhaust valve is waggling a fair bit. I mean, I've seen worse, and likewise the inlet. I'd sort of do it from this end, but probably my hand will probably get in the way of what the camera can see. Maybe it's possible to see that hook in there, and the exhaust in there. There's quite a bit of play in that exhaust one. The inlet is actually borderline acceptable, and it would have probably, to be fair, the engine could have probably run with them like that for quite some time to come without any real adverse effects, possibly a little bit of oil consumption, but my feeling is that, seeing as how the cylinder head is off, and I'm also fitting new piston rings after finding that you could almost drive a bus through that second compression ring gap, it would be a shame not to refresh the cylinder head as well. So I'm also going to be fitting the slim stem valves and their corresponding guides, which may give some tiny performance edge, but they're about the same price as the originals, so it's a bit silly not to fit them. So that's what I'm going to do next, is just get these valves out, heat the head up if necessary, drift the guides out, and wait to see if any post comes today. We've had postal strikes, but I've got replacement slim stem valves and guides ordered that can be fitted when they arrive, and then hopefully I can start putting the engine back together, and we may finally find that we've got a decent engine. And going back to that gap in the second piston ring, and the other two were quite worn actually as well, to be honest, they would have probably allowed a little bit of blow by, and would have certainly contributed to any unwanted crankcase pressure and possible breather issues and breathing issues, and possible contributory factors to oil weeps from things like the rocker cover gasket and so on. So hopefully it should all be a much happier bunny when it goes back together with new piston rings and new valves and guides, all being well. Just to recap on some of the recent things I've done with this Royal Enfield Olympic 250, I had the cylinder head off alone first of all last week, because there was an oil leak from the head gasket joint, which unfortunately was hiding or camouflaging a small leak from the cylinder base gasket, which I only realised was leaking once I'd sorted the oil pouring from the head gasket joint out. So I had to backtrack, take the head off again and the cylinder barrel. I found that the second compression ring had a huge gap on it, probably something in the region of 1/4 of an inch. So that might have contributed to a bit of blow by and compounded any breather issues and leaks that we had. So I've rebuilt it with, I deglazed the bore, which was in good enough shape. The piston was good, I decoked that, fitted the new piston rings to it. The cylinder head, I found that there was quite a bit of slop in the valves and guides, so it's had new valves and guides as well. It's had the slim stem valves, which are slightly slimmer, obviously as the name implies, than the standard ones, which might just help breathing a little bit, but they're in there and ground in and cleaned up as well, so it's all back together. I haven't even tidied the tools off the bike lift yet. I've literally just finished. One of the last jobs I had to do was solder the nipple back onto the end of the throttle cable at the twist grip, where it hadn't actually pulled out. It actually broke off right at the nipple, which is quite not unheard of, but normally you either get them breaking a bit further along or pulling out. But anyway, that's all sorted as well, and I've oiled the throttle cable with the hydraulic cable oiler, so it's nice and smooth. We'll try and put this camera down here steady, and basically let's see what, if anything, happens when I try and start it. No tricks, it's stone cold. I don't know what it's going to do, but let's find out. Expecting it to tick over like that when it's warmed up, so I never really got to the bottom of the tick over issues, unless the piston rings and the sloppy valve guides had any part to play in that. But we've got a runner certainly, and hopefully it might be a bit less smoky this time around as well. Speed it up a little. Who knows? I'll let it warm up a bit, we might even have a tick over here. I'm just going to run it until it gets fairly warm, let the well seal set on the new rockerbox gasket that I've fitted there. The exhaust is a lot cleaner. Early signs look quite good and quite promising. Hello, we're slowing down a bit now. We're still hunting and faltering a little. I won't bore everyone with 10 minutes or so of me revving it up and warming it up and twiddling with the tick over screw or whatever, but I'm going to keep it running, get it warmed through, then stop it and go and have a lunch break, and all being well, apart from the weather which is bucketing it down out there, I might be ready to have yet another test ride on this thing soon, and hopefully perhaps a more successful one. So I'm keeping the engine running, yes I am. But I'll stop filming. So that's what we got so far. That's condensation there, by the way, not smoke. Well, until the next instalment, I'll switch the camera off now. Still haven't taken this bike off the bench yet to try it out up and down the lane, but I've got what is borderline an acceptable tick over on it at last. At least it doesn't overrun or race when you shut the throttle off anymore. It comes back now to a steady-ish tick over pretty much straight away, rather than that terrible overrunning that it did earlier. It does, if you leave it ticking over for a little while, it does pick up speed. So I'm going to climb up now, switch off, and hopefully demonstrate that it will start with hopefully one kick straight into a tick over with no throttle. Let's have a look. Put this down here a minute. Climb up. not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than it's ever been since it's been here. I've gone back down to a 25 pilot jet from the 30 that I tried in it, which replaced the 25 in it originally, so the carburettor is more set up more like it was. Yeah, we're just picking up a bit of speed here. It'll probably drop down again in a moment. I don't think it's going to be a problem on the overrun on the throttle when you shut off for a corner or down a hill or anything, but at least it shouldn't stall at any junctions or anything with any luck. Possibly the valve job and the piston rings might help, and maybe I'll be able to turn it down a bit when it's got some miles on it. The exhaust is nice and clean. There's no smoke anymore. So the piston rings and the valves and guides between them have sorted that out, because that was quite messy as well. So next up, I think the weather seems to be drying up and brightening up a little. I'll probably have some lunch, let this cool down, then maybe try out a couple of runs up and down the lane, and if I'm happy with those, possibly go further afield and hopefully have some good news. Time for a bite to eat, and then come back and resume play after lunch.